Sparkle, the girl that will do anything for amusement. Anything. Sparkle is a character that boosts the total amount of skill points available to the team, advances the actions of characters, and also gives a damage bonus to allies. Sparkle is looking like a pretty strong character, and she is going to be a Quantum Harmony character that breaks the conventional rules with her extra skill point ability. She's definitely going to be another Harmony character that you might not want to pass up on because she can assist many different kinds of teams. So let's deep dive into her kit, starting with her basic attack. It's actually a pretty normal basic attack except when you unlock her third trace, in that it will regen an extra 10 energy. This makes it so that the attack now regens 30 energy instead of the standard 20. Next up is her skill, Dream Diver. This will increase the crit damage of a single ally by 24% of Sparkle's crit damage plus 45%, lasting for one turn. And then it also advances that character's action by 50%. If Sparkle were to use this ability on herself, then the action advance effect does not trigger. She only gets the extra crit damage. So basically, you don't really ever want to be using this on herself. Also, with the fact that she increases crit damage based off of her own crit damage, this means that we'll definitely want to be building crit damage in our substats and the main stat. That's the stats that we want to prioritize when building her. Also note that the 50% action advance is not 100% like Bronya. So there can be situations where the character doesn't immediately get their turn, but it's still going to get them pretty far up the action order. For example, if you're advancing a pretty slow character, then they might not immediately get their turn. If you play Topaz and Numby, the action advance is the same amount, so it behaves in a very similar manner. But of course, Numby has a very set speed, whereas your party can have a lot more speed. 50% action advance will cut the action value in half if you have them enabled in the settings. If you don't have them enabled in the settings, then you definitely should do that. So you can basically just do quick maths to determine if they will move immediately. After cutting their action value in half, if they are the lowest action value out of all of the action values that are currently out there, then they will immediately get their turn. So this is a pretty powerful ability, because we know that Bronya's action advance is likewise pretty broken and really good. However, the problem with Bronya was that it was very skill point intensive, but Sparkle kind of fixes that problem because she allows the team to have just more skill points in general. So this ability is looking pretty strong. Next up is her ultimate, the Hero with 1,000 Faces. Her ultimate is 110 energy cost, so a little bit lower than average. What this ultimate does is that it recovers 4 skill points for the team and grants all allies Cypher. All allies should include Sparkle herself. When allies with Cypher trigger the damage boost from Sparkle's talent, which we will go over immediately after this, then each stack additionally increases its effect by 10%, lasting for 2 turns. So let's immediately go into her talent. Her talent, Red Herring. While Sparkle is on the battlefield, the maximum amount of skill points increases by 2, so now we have 7 total skill points to work with. And then, whenever an ally consumes 1 skill point, all allies' damage increases by 6%. This effect lasts for 2 turns and can stack up to 3 times. So going back to the ultimate real quick, whenever an ally consumes 1 skill point, then all allies' damage will increase by 16%, because you get that extra 10% from the ultimate. So her talent gets better when all of your allies have the Cypher effect applied to them. Now, some synergies immediately come to mind, because this states that whenever ally consumes 1 skill point, so this means that if a character can consume multiple skill points in 1 turn, then you can stack up this damage bonus pretty quickly. This is also a buff for characters and not Sparkle herself, so that means the turn count on these buffs will be dependent on the speed of your other characters and not Sparkle. So without the ultimate, you get a 18% damage buff at maximum stacks, and then with Cypher activated from the ultimate, you get a 48% damage bonus at maximum stacks. That's pretty powerful. Immediately, Qingque comes to mind, where she can probably just immediately get an extra 48% damage bonus on top of her own damage bonus, which just propels her damage to just probably crazy levels. Likewise, Dan Heng has a very similar synergy. And then her technique, Unreliable Narrator. Using the technique will grant all allies misdirect, which is basically a stealth. It makes it so that you cannot be detected by enemies. And then when entering battle, while you have this buff up, you will recover 3 skill points for the team. So this means you start the battle with 6 skill points, which is a whole lot. The ability to not be detected probably behaves very similar to Zila's ability. However, you can switch characters, unlike Zila's ability. Next up are Sparkle's Traces. Her first one, Nocturne, will increase all allies' attack by 15%. When there are 1, 2, or 3 quantum allies on the team, it will increase quantum type allies' attack by 5%, 15%, or 30%. 5% for 1 extra quantum character, 15% for 2 extra quantum characters, and 30% for 3 quantum characters on the team. This should not include Sparkle herself. So this means to completely maximize this trace, you're going to be running a mono quantum team. However, this does not mean that you have to run a mono quantum team. It should also be noted that the extra attack bonus is in addition to the base 15. So in actuality, it's going to be a 20%, 30%, and 45% increase for the respective amount of quantum characters on the team. Also, an attack buff in general is pretty good because a lot of quantum characters already have damage bonuses baked into their kits. So when you take a look at the damage formula, you want to balance damage bonus and attack in order to maximize your damage output. So having her trace give an attack bonus is really good because now you're able to balance that. This also makes it so that you think a little bit more on whether you should be running an attack orb or a quantum orb for your planar ornament set. If your team is getting tons of damage bonus already, then you may actually want to consider running an attack orb instead of a quantum damage orb. So as just a rule of thumb, you can easily just calculate your total attack bonuses that you get from your team and your total damage bonuses that you're getting from your team and compare the two, and then just try to balance that out to decide if you want to run damage bonus or attack percentage. Our next trace is Artificial Flower. The crit damage boost effect provided by the skill will extend to last until the start of the target's next turn. So recall before that her skill gave the crit damage bonus only for 1 turn, so that is a pretty short duration. But what this trace now allows is that after the character acts, they will retain the crit damage, so if they have follow-up attacks, then those attacks will get the extra crit damage bonus. Without this trace, then your follow-up attacks will not get the extra crit damage bonus because the buff gets dispelled immediately after you do your action. This also means, for example, if you get an ultimate, then your ultimate should also get the crit damage boost. So some pretty nice just quality of life trace here. And then as mentioned earlier, her third trace is Almanac, which allows her basic attack to additionally regenerate 10 energy, bringing it up to 30 energy regenerated for every basic attack used. Her minor traces are 28% HP, 24% extra crit damage, and 10% effect res. So as a Harmony character, the total amount of buffs that Sparkle is able to provide is a maximum of 45% attack and at least 15% attack, and then at least 18% damage bonus, and then a maximum of 48% damage bonus. And then the crit damage bonus is of course based off of a percentage of sparkles, but you will at least always have 45% if you're at talent level 10. And just as a note, all of these scalings that I've mentioned are at talent level 10. Now let's talk a little bit about her rotation. Now, even though her basic attack does regenerate 30 energy, you'll definitely want to be using her skill every turn if possible, because you want to advance forward your DPS characters' actions as much as possible to have them deal as much damage as possible. So at the start of the MOC, or Sparkle, she's going to have 55 energy. And then using one skill will put her at 85. And then using another skill will put her at 115. So she has a 2-turn ult at the very start of the MOC. And then after that, we start with 5, and then go to 35, 65, 95, 125. This means that she has a 4-turn ult naturally. Now we are able to cut down this rotation to 3 turns if we use at least 19.4% energy regeneration. So either 19.4% or 24.4% will guarantee a 3-turn rotation. So you can decide to go with the Penacony set, or you can go with a Broken Keel set and just run energy regeneration. Alright, now let's talk relic sets real quick. Now the thing about Sparkle is that she doesn't really care about a 4-piece relic set. If you can get a 4-piece relic set, then the Hacker Space is going to be a great option just to boost the speed of yourself and your teammates. However, it is totally not necessary. What is more necessary is meeting as many stat benchmarks on your Sparkle as possible. So this means reaching a good enough crit damage so that you can boost your teammates' crit damage to some good levels, and then also reaching some speed benchmarks so that you can advance your character's actions as much as possible. Basically, however fast your Sparkle is how fast your DPS character can be. So, in terms of main stats, we'll definitely want to be going with a crit damage body piece and speed boots. And if we're playing ornament sets, you definitely want to go for some defensive stats like HP or defense to make sure she stays alive. She doesn't really do damage herself, so you don't need to go with a quantum damage orb or attack percentage. You can, of course, if you want your Sparkle to do some damage, but if she's having a hard time staying alive, then she's going to have a hard time boosting the actions of your DPS characters. So the speed benchmark that we definitely want to hit is at least 160. This allows us to get multiple turns within the MOC within the first couple of cycles. 160 speed is not the be-all, end-all. It's just a pretty good benchmark to try and hit. There's also tons of other content that don't go off of the cycle system, so in general, just getting as much speed as you can is going to be pretty good. And so like I mentioned earlier, in terms of sets, the Hacker Space set is good, and then defensive sets are good, like the Weathering set to give damage reduction and Longevous just for HP. But honestly, just go for a Rainbow set and try to hit good crit damage numbers and good speed numbers. Now let's talk briefly about her Lightcone options. Her signature Lightcone is going to be a really solid Lightcone that just gives a bunch of extra crit rate and crit damage to her teammates. Bronya's Lightcone is pretty good. It gives more energy regeneration and also regenerates a skill point, and also gives a damage bonus to the teammate that she uses her skill on. The extra energy regen here doesn't really make a difference. Our ultimate is still a 3-turn rotation. Dance 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 is a nice alternative as well. It will advance forward actions of teammates when we use our ultimate, so just more action advance. Who doesn't want that? Planetary Rendezvous is a great choice for mono quantum teams just to give more damage bonuses. And then Lightcones you want to stay away from are Memories of the Past or Meshing Cogs, because she doesn't really use her basic attack a lot, to be honest. She's gonna want to be using her skill pretty much almost every turn to advance forward her teammates' actions. Now, there is a new Lightcone that came with the 2.0 patch, and it's kind of weird. It's really only going to help Zila and not Imbibitor, Lune, or Qingque. This is because the ability of this Lightcone is that it's going to boost the damage of the attack that you used. So if Sparkle is always using her skill, then she's only boosting skill damage. She's not really using her basic attack, so she's not going to be boosting the basic attack damage of Imbibitor and Qingque. And then for team synergies, I have mentioned them throughout the entire video, but Zila, Qingque, and Imbibitor Lune seem to be some of the best teammates for Qingque to utilize her to the most fullest potential. Imbibitor Lune, a little bit less so because he's not quantum, so you don't get that 3rd level of bonus from her trace, but still pretty good just because of the extra skill points. But, of course, this does not mean she needs to be in a mono quantum team. She can definitely help out any team because any team wants to consume skill points. She also just provides a bunch of damage bonus and attack bonuses as well, and action advancing is just really good. I would argue that she probably just doesn't fit very well on dot teams because they don't care about crit. But arguably, the action advancing is still pretty good for them. However, that's not to say that the current best dot team with Kafka, Rodmay, Black Swan, and Ho-Ho would get better by adding a Sparkle. Anyway guys, that's all that I have for you in this video. If this video helped you out, definitely leave a like. It'll help out the channel a ton. And let me know down in the comments what you think about Sparkle. How many tickets do you have saved? Are you going for her? Until next time, I'll see you guys in the next one.